for kids, and a legislative proposal to prevent and combat child sex abuse and exploitation. This will be the subject of the college readout by Vice President Suica, Vice President Skinas, and Commissioner Johansson. Commissioners will also discuss DEBRA, or Debt Equity Bias Reduction Allowance, a bit of a mouthful, a proposal that aims at supporting businesses in their financing needs by introducing an allowance that will grant to equity the same tax treatment as for debt. This file will be presented by Commissioner Gentiloni after the readout. The College will also discuss a reform to the rules on the conclusion of financial service contracts online, which will be presented to you by Commissioner Reinders. And finally, tomorrow, the College will also discuss new ways to support Ukraine in its agricultural exports, thanks to so-called solidarity lanes, which will be presented to you by Commissioner Vălean on Thursday. So as you can see, a very busy agenda for us tomorrow. J'appelle maintenant Verlet à me joindre sur le podium pour une annonce concernant la Croatie et Next Generation EU.
Today, the European Commission has endorsed a positive preliminary assessment of Croatia's first payment request of 700 million in grants under the Recovery and Resilience Facility, the key instrument at the heart of Next Generation EU. The Commission has thoroughly assessed the evidence provided by the Croatian authorities to demonstrate the fulfillment of 33 milestones and 1 target. They cover transformative reforms and investments in areas including health, adult education, anti-corruption, audit and control, as well as energy efficiency of buildings. Today's step paves the way to the payment of 700 million to Croatia. The Commission has sent its positive preliminary assessment to the Economic and Financial Committee, which will express its opinion within 4 weeks, and then the Commission will adopt the final decision on the disbursement. The Croatian plan overall will be supported by up to 6.3 billion in grants, of which 818 million was disbursed to Croatia in pre-financing last September. You can find more information in the press release we published just that.
Thank you very much. Verlet, to continue, Sonia will share news on further support to Ukraine and people fleeing the war, this time in the field of research.
Good afternoon. Today, the Commission is stepping up its support to displaced researchers from Ukraine by launching a new scheme in the context of the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions, which is the EU flagship program for doctoral and postdoctoral training. With a total budget of 25 million euros, the scheme called MSCA for Ukraine will grant fellowships for doctoral candidates and postdoctoral researchers to continue their academic work in the European Union and countries associated to the Horizon Europe programme. The scheme is part of EU's response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine and the need for rapid action to support the displaced researchers. It will enable these researchers to continue their work in Europe, helping to safeguard Ukraine's research and innovation system and the freedom of research, scientific research at large. This programme is made possible thanks to the amendment to the Horizon Europe Work Programme for the period 2021-2022, also announced today. For more information, please consult our press release.
Thank you very much, Sonia. Now, finally, before starting with your questions, it is with great sadness and respect that I would like to pay tribute to our journalist colleague, Khalid Hamed Farouki, a very well-known and respected figure of our press room who passed away suddenly last weekend. Hailing from Pakistan, Khalid was GOTV's bureau chief. He had spent decades in the field of journalism and remained associated to the GOTV since its launch. He also covered extensively the French elections and was an expert on NATO. Khalid gave a voice to journalism where it is often silenced. He brought light to conflicts and developments in other parts of the world, always putting human rights on top of the agenda. Khalid was an unconditional of the press room. I remember seeing him sitting right here, always close to Nawab. I remember fondly how he asked in the most gentle of voices and the most courteous of tones, incisive questions about the EU's stance on human rights in various places of the world. Khalid knew Ukraine for having spent time there. At the beginning of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, he courageously traveled to Kiev to report from the war zone. I also remember with a smile how he corrected me when I once again confused his first name with that of Nawab. He joked and made us all laugh, me the first. I am grateful for his elegance. In addition to his journalistic work, he will be remembered for his humanitarian work. He fought for freedom of press and democracy. So today, we remember a professional, principled journalist, a kind gentleman, and a strong soul. Our thoughts are with his wife and his 2 children. I will truly miss you, Khalid. That is all in terms of our announcements. I invite you now to ask your questions. Yes, please.
Thanks, Eric. That was a very nice tribute of you. Could you give us a bit more of a further readout of the President's trip to Budapest last night, please, and what the next steps in the process will be? I think she's going to host a meeting today with Viktor Orban, Emmanuel Macron possibly, and other leaders from that kind of part of Europe on energy supplies. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question, Joe. So, indeed, as you saw from the President's tweets yesterday, President von der Leyen was invited by Prime Minister Orban to Budapest yesterday to discuss issues related to Hungarian and European energy security of supply in the context of the ongoing discussions on the Commission's proposals related to sanctions on Russian oil and petroleum products. So basically, the President went there to listen and to search for solutions jointly with Prime Minister Orban to solve Hungary's legitimate concerns when it comes to oil supply. Now, you have heard me say here in the press room a number of times, indeed, that we acknowledge that Hungary and other countries that are landlocked and have a significant energy dependency on Russian oil supply are in a very specific situation which requires that we find specific solutions. So that was what the discussion was about. It was a very constructive discussion which allowed us to identify a certain number of issues on which to work, and this work will now continue. On the video conference which you mentioned, the video conference will take place once we have made progress on the technical work, so that the video conference can bear the best possible fruits. Follow-up.
Thank you. Just a very quick one. The Hungarian foreign minister said there had been little progress, which means there has been some progress. Does part of that hinge around the idea that Hungary could be given a 5-year transition period to phase out the use and import of Russian oil, which Vladimir Putin, Viktor Orban has said on record that he thinks his country would need to kind of change its supply chains and how it operates?
Well, the discussion yesterday didn't go into timelines. The discussion yesterday focused more on the types of issues which needed to be resolved, and there are various elements there to mention. One first obvious element is oil transportation infrastructure. right? Since Hungary is a landlocked country receiving its crude oil through pipelines, it's obvious that if Hungary is to replace that oil through other sources, it needs the appropriate pipeline capacity connecting it to those other sources. Storage of oil is also an issue. Refinery infrastructure, obviously. And then there's the more general issue of the transformation of the energy system in order to cope with a shift away from Russian oil. So all these issues were put on the table. You know, I mean, I have seen it written all over the press that indeed we had in our proposals made specific proposals related to differentiated timelines corresponding to the different situations of specific countries, and that is definitely one of the variables, because obviously if you're talking about investments in upgrading infrastructure, you need time. But yesterday's meeting did not go into specific timelines. Katalin.
Thank you, Eric. This is a follow-up on this question. I'm wondering whether the President promised to the Hungarian Prime Minister any EU financial support, because Prime Minister Orbán said earlier that Hungary even cannot start working on diversification of energy resources before it gets money from Brussels. Thanks.
Thank you. No promises. This was not a meeting about promises. This was a meeting to ensure that there was proper understanding at political level and at technical level on both sides on the issues that are at stake. And the Prime Minister and the President agreed that their teams would work on identifying the joint solutions that I mentioned at the beginning of my intervention. Are there other questions on this issue? Good Lord, I look at the platform Interactio and I see lots of hands raised. So for the moment, we stay on this. Mose, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you very much, Eric. I would also like to follow up a question on the talks yesterday between the President and Hungarian Prime Minister. And as you said, I mean, different options were discussed, but not so many the details. My question is whether the Commission somehow has started any study how to, let's say, help Hungary to replace, let's say, its dependence on import of fossil fuels from Russia, because obviously that's very important for them. And I wonder also if it's legally possible for EU, let's say, to decide on new sanctions, these 6 package of sanctions, and accepting that some countries, like Hungary and other smaller countries, which are so much dependent on this import, that they will be, let's say, at least temporarily exempted from joining those sanctions. I suppose that is what Hungary wants. Thank you.
Well, what Hungary wants, you have to ask Hungary. On your second question, which is it possible to adopt sanctions which exempt certain members? This is also a question that you need to address to Council. It's for Council to come up with a consensus on the best way forward. But what is extremely important, what we have always stressed from the Commission's point of view, is that we maintain unity of the European Union when it comes to sanctions against Russia. This is a collective effort. Now, obviously, we acknowledge the specific situation of member states and the need to cater for their specific circumstances. How that can be achieved exactly is precisely the object of the current work that is ongoing. As to whether we have studies, etc., Mose, we are, as you know, a very specialized administration, and obviously we are looking, based on all our technical expertise, at what are the options that would allow us to help Hungary and countries that face similar issues. Justina.
Floor. Eric, and I would like to ask one question about sanctions, but not Hungary. Yesterday, there were some reports that Greek companies are helping Russia to bypass sanctions by shipping Russian fossil fuels. How can you comment these reports, and does the European Union follow possible tries by member states to help Russia bypass sanctions? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Justina. No, I cannot comment on press reports related to this. But obviously, as we have always said, it is the responsibility of member states to implement the sanctions and control their full implementation by all those involved. And we remain on that line. So we continue on the issue of sanctions. And if possible, please, for the moment, only the issues related to the oil sanctions in Hungary that I mentioned. Momshil.
I have two questions. The first one, could you please mention the countries besides Hungary who will take place in this, who will take part in the video conference? My second question is, has already the European Commission sent a response to the Bulgarian, to the letter of the Bulgaria, where Bulgaria asks for 2 years exemption?
Thank you very much, Momshil. Which countries will take part in the VTC? No, I cannot confirm that now. We will see when the VTC takes place. I am not aware of the Bulgarian letter that you mentioned, but as you know, sanctions are discussed in Council now, in Coreper, first of all. And it is not for the Commission to, it's not even in the Commission's power to unilaterally grant this or that exception. The Commission came forward with proposals after having discussed and consulted member states. And now the discussion on how to finalize this package of sanctions in the oil sector is with the member states in the different formations, the first of which is Coreper. And as you know, we never comment the discussions whilst they are ongoing. Angela. Angela, you have the floor. If you can ensure you have the... Yes, go ahead.
Yes, go ahead. And now the discussion on...
Yes, can you hear me? Sorry, I was on EBS.
Go ahead, Angela, we hear you.
Okay. Okay, sorry. I just wanted to know, good morning. The President says that an agreement is possible by the end of the week. And do you think this timing is realistic? Thanks.
Sorry, who said that?
The French Minister, Bon.
If you could switch off EBS, because I really don't like my voice. Thanks. What I can say is that obviously we are working flat out to help member states find a consensus. The timing on a possible consensus that we all aspire to is really not for me to determine or to make predictions on. But we certainly hope that the European Union can adopt the sanctions as quickly as possible. David.
Oui, tu m'entends, Eric?
Je t'en prie, vas-y.
Merci. David Carrette, Radio Radicale, merci pour la parole. Deux questions. La première, est-ce que le plan de reprise et résilience, de relance résilience hongrois a été discuté dans le contexte aussi des sanctions? Et deuxième question, vendredi, le haut représentant Borrell avait dit qu'il n'y avait pas d'accord pendant le week-end sur le 6e paquet. Il aurait convoqué une réunion extraordinaire des ministres des Affaires étrangères après la fête de l'Europe, le 9 mai. Je me demande s'il pense que ce soit nécessaire de convoquer cette réunion. Merci.
Merci beaucoup. Sur ta première question, l'invitation qui avait été faite par le Premier ministre à la présidente était pour une discussion sur les sujets énergétiques et la discussion a porté entièrement et uniquement sur les sujets énergétiques et sur aucun autre sujet. En ce qui concerne la deuxième question, je vais passer la parole à Peter.
Merci, bon après-midi. Merci pour la question. David, le représentant a indiqué qu'il pourra convoquer le Conseil des affaires étrangères extraordinaire s'il n'y aura un accord. Mais comme Eric a déjà expliqué, la discussion continue. Donc, c'est un travail au cours. Et jusqu'à maintenant, nous n'avons fait aucun annoncement sur un Conseil des affaires étrangères extraordinaire.
David, tu as une question de follow-up, de suivi.
Oui, merci Peter pour ta réponse. Mais en fait, le représentant, il avait clairement dit un accord pendant le week-end, pas un accord dans 3 jours ou une semaine, etc. Et donc, je me demandais si ça vaut ou non sa parole. Et si je peux aussi une question de follow-up, est-ce que vous pensez qu'il y a des risques de répercussions pour les autres mesures du paquet? C'est-à-dire, en particulier, les personnes qui vont être sanctionnées, les banques qui vont être sanctionnées, est-ce que vous pensez qu'ils vont agir pour anticiper l'entrée en vigueur de ces sanctions? Merci.
Peut-être sur le premier point, je crois qu'il ne faut pas oublier, David, qu'on a des situations qui sont très mouvantes, qui évoluent tout le temps, et que l'ensemble des parties prenantes s'adaptent un petit peu à cette évolution de la situation. Sur la deuxième question, je passe la parole à Peter.
Je répéterai ici seulement ce que nous disons toujours, ce sont les discussions qui sont en cours et nous jamais commentons sur ce processus de discussion, soit sur les mesures, soit sur le listing. Donc, on doit attendre les conclusions de ces discussions qui sont, comme nous avons déjà dit, toujours en cours.
Merci. Tomislav.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Tomislav Krasnic from Croatian Daily Večernji. There's one aspect of these talks with Hungary that I don't understand. Hungary is saying that they don't have an alternative route, although there is an alternative route, oil pipeline called Adria, going from Croatia towards Hungary, and it's been operating for like 42 years. So is this pipeline a part of the solution that you are discussing and talking about? And since Hungary is insisting on argument they don't have alternative route, although reality is different, do you allow for the possibility that Hungary simply doesn't want to use an alternative route, that it wants to use Druzhba, Russian Brotherhood pipeline? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think you need to distinguish two things. The existence of infrastructure that is tailored to the delivery of quantities of oil at specific volumes, historically speaking, and what would happen if a specific country, for example, Hungary, were to lose access, because of the sanctions, of the oil supplies that it gets from Russia through the Druzhba pipeline, as you mentioned. You have potentially lots of issues of a technical nature that need to be solved in order to be able to get the levels of oil that you need. And as I said at the beginning of my intervention, oil is not oil. Crude oil is not crude oil. Crude oil that you get from one country is not as the same as that you get from another. So there are also downstream effects. So in these areas, which are highly technical, it's very, very important to steer away from oversimplifications. And this is exactly why the President felt that it was helpful, useful to go to Hungary to have a discussion, and based on that, to allow our teams to continue the technical work that is required. What would be part of a package of solutions that would allow us to enable Hungary to overcome this dependency? That is something which is still on the drawing board and on which we are obviously working. Christian.
Est-ce que vous m'entendez ou pas?
Nous t'entendons parfaitement. Par contre, nous te voyons de travers. Décidément, aujourd'hui...
Est-ce que vous m'entendez ou pas?
Oui, nous t'entendons, mais nous te voyons en angle droit, Christian.
Oui, je sais, je sais pas. C'est un peu bizarre, mais si tu m'entends, je n'entends même pas la réponse, mais ça fait rien. Je voudrais revenir sur deux points que tu as formulés. Tu as dit... ce que demandent les Hongrois, il faut leur demander, et c'est au Conseil de prendre les sanctions. Alors moi, je voudrais savoir, la proposition de la Commission, je pense qu'elle a été préparée en amont. Or, on découvre que tout d'un coup, on a des spécificités avec des pays bien particuliers, comme la Hongrie, et on découvre qu'effectivement, la Hongrie est totalement dépendante, que sur un embargo pétrolier dont on parle depuis des mois, si jamais elle n'a plus accès à l'oléoduc russe, elle est complètement squeezée. Et on est en train de travailler maintenant sur les détails techniques qui semblent évidents, qu'il aurait fallu les régler avant. Donc, est-ce que ça veut dire que lors des consultations que vous avez menées avec la Hongrie pour la préparation du 6e paquet, elle ne vous a jamais rien demandé, elle ne vous a jamais rien dit, elle n'a pas exposé un seul problème, ni une seule objection au problème que ça allait lui poser? Merci.
Merci Christian, je vais t'appeler Spider-Man dorénavant. Parce que tu ressemblais vraiment à quelqu'un qui était accroché à un mur. Redevenons sérieux. Alors, c'est une question qui nous a déjà été posée et tu as tout à fait raison de la poser. Bien entendu, nous l'avons dit, la Commission a mené des réunions d'information avec les États membres avant de soumettre son paquet. Et par ailleurs, les autorités hongroises, je pense, avaient clairement indiqué que les sujets énergétiques étaient des sujets très sensibles lorsqu'il s'agit de sanctions. Mais la Commission n'a jamais dit qu'elle ne ferait une proposition qu'une fois qu'il y aurait déjà un consensus entre les États membres avant de soumettre sa proposition. Cela reviendrait en fait à dévoyer le système institutionnel européen. La Commission fait des propositions, elle a effectivement l'habitude de consulter, et une fois qu'elle a consulté, elle fait une proposition qui lui semble permettre de tenir compte des principaux enjeux et intérêts qui ont été exprimés. Et comme tu le sais, et c'est vrai pour énormément d'autres dossiers, notamment des dossiers législatifs, il y a souvent encore un besoin de discussion après. C'est ça la réalité du fonctionnement démocratique de l'Union européenne. Et plus le débat avance, parfois, plus on rentre dans le détail technique des difficultés qui sont rencontrées, et c'est ça qui permet d'affiner. Si nous avions attendu que tous les problèmes soient réglés avant de mettre notre proposition, peut-être qu'elle n'aurait été mise sur la table beaucoup plus tard. Là, elle est sur la table Et elle incite les États membres et la Commission européenne à mener les discussions nécessaires pour trouver des solutions. Je vois que tu as une question de suivi. Spider-Man, tu as la parole. Il n'est pas vexé, j'espère. Nous espérons juste que tu n'as pas un problème de micro à côté de ton problème de caméra. Christian, ta source micro ne semble pas être la bonne. En attendant que tu règles cela, nous allons passer à Jacobo. Jacobo, go ahead. Okay, a good reason to incite you all to come to the press room from time to time. Physically, we're always delighted to see you, and it makes our interactions easier. So Jacobo is not working either, so we change again, et nous allons vers Camille.
Bonjour, est-ce que vous m'entendez?
Nous te voyons et nous t'entendons parfaitement, vas-y.
Ah, génial, merci beaucoup. Monsieur Borrell, à la fin de la conférence de presse sur la Syrie, a parlé d'un FAQ dimanche, et je voulais juste savoir si c'était une erreur de sa part, et s'il parlait du FAQ de lundi, ou s'il y avait un FAQ exceptionnel qui était prévu pour dimanche. Merci beaucoup.
Merci. Peter me dit qu'il s'agit de lundi prochain donc. Merci pour cette clarification. Bien, je ne vois plus d'autres mains levées. Jacobo, we try again. Jacobo, you're out of luck today, it seems. So please, no, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Okay, perfect. So, Jacobo de Regoyos, Onda Cero. This is a question about the Spanish-Portuguese proposal. There was a mess yesterday. It was approved, it was not approved. About the gas in the Iberian Peninsula, the prices. The Commission said that this was not officially approved, that it was just a preliminary approval. If this is a preliminary approval, is this good enough for the Spanish government or the Portuguese government to implement the legal procedures to start with the new prices as soon as possible? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Indeed, we saw the news reports coming out on this, and I believe that we gave lots of answers to all of you yesterday, but we're happy to clarify once again what is the exact stage in the procedure at which we are for the moment.
So indeed, as Eric says, we have replied yesterday, but I'm very happy to recall the main points of our answer, and then we can be in touch bilaterally if you want more details, perhaps. We have taken note of the Spanish and Portuguese intentions to adopt very soon legislation enacting the emergency temporary mechanism to mitigate the impact of fossil fuel prices on the wholesale electricity price in the Iberian electricity market, in line, of course, with what was decided in the Council meeting of end of March. The aim is, of course, to allow for proportionate and temporary measures to address this exceptional situation of price levels while maintaining the incentives for sustainable energy transition and as well the integrity and benefits of the single market with no restrictions to cross-border flows, which is, of course, key for us. We have indeed confirmed yesterday that no formal decision has been taken at this stage by us. The Commission, however, has remained in close contact with the Spanish and Portuguese authorities about the design of the measures. We have recently received a draft technical measure containing a large number of relevant details that are in line with the political agreement that we have reached in a meeting between Executive Vice President Besteyer and the Spanish and Portuguese ministers some weeks ago. And indeed, we have shared with the authorities our preliminary assessment. So it is indeed a preliminary assessment. Certain information remain outstanding at this stage, and we expect to receive them with the formal notification of the measures by the two member states. Once we will have received the notification, we will of course complete our assessment and take a decision. Our objective is to come to a legally solid decision as soon as possible, while ensuring that the measures reduce spot electricity market prices for companies and consumers and do not affect trading conditions to an extent contrary to the common interest.
Thank you. Jacobo, you have a follow-up.
Is this good enough for the Spanish government to go ahead and approve all the legal procedures to go ahead with the new prices or not?
I mean, the legal adoption of legislation we have taken care of. It's for the member states to decide on the procedures and, of course, to notify the measures to us that they consider aid. As I have said, we have been in contact, you know it now, for several weeks. We have provided a preliminary assessment and now are waiting for an official notification. It is for the member states to ensure compliance with the state aid procedures.
Thank you. Are there other questions on this? Although I think that Ariana has been extremely extensive in her answer. I looked at the Spanish side of the room. No, everybody's satisfied. Very good. Are there other questions on this? Please keep your hand raised in the chat, only if you have a question on this. No, so thank you very much. We close the floor on this issue, and I go to Mindaugas.
Hello, thank you, Eric, for the floor. Mindaugas Lukagalis from Lithuanian National Radio and Television. I have a question on Ukraine, because yesterday French President Emmanuel Macron said that the EU should create a new political European community for countries which for various reasons can't get into the EU right now, such as Ukraine. So I wonder, how does the Commission see this proposal, especially when talking about Ukraine? And also, you know, there is already a body. It's the Eastern Partnership. There are summits and everything. So isn't the proposal the same as the Eastern Partnership? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, I cannot say whether the French president's proposal is the same as the Eastern Partnership or not, because we heard the idea being aired yesterday during the president's speech at the closing event of the Conference on the Future of Europe. But I believe he himself said that he would present this proposal in more detail to his colleagues in the European Council. So I think we will all wait to see exactly what he has in mind. As far as we are concerned, let me just stress here very, very clearly that we have a European accession process which is defined, which is ongoing for a number of countries, and that absolutely nothing changes when it comes to the processes which are currently underway. Mindaugas, you have a follow-up. We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. A really short one. I think the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky today said that he hopes that until June, I think, the country could get candidate status. Does that realistic in your opinion?
Thanks. Look, the Commission for the moment has to give its opinion on the answers based on the answers which Ukraine has provided and will provide, or perhaps we have received them in the meantime. We have received them, Anna? Yes, we have received them now officially. And we have said that we will do this as quickly as possible. June is certainly a target, but we will have to see, obviously. But as quickly as possible is definitely the way forward for us. All right. I see. Okay, we continue on the issue of Ukraine. Mose, you have a question on Ukraine?
Thank you, Eric. Just a very quick follow-up question about EU funding to Ukraine. It's not about the sanctions, but about the refugees from Ukraine who arrived in neighboring countries. And I understand that Hungary has received perhaps about 500,000 refugees, but there seems to be some uncertainty about how many of them are really staying in Hungary. So my question is if Hungary has requested EU assistance for supporting the refugees coming to their country, and to what extent has Hungary already received that assistance? Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Mose, question for Stefan. Let me point out to Mindaugas, let me come back very quickly before I give the floor to Stefan. Yesterday, the President herself mentioned June as our target month to give our opinion. If you look at her Twitter account from yesterday, you will see that she mentioned June herself. Stefan.
Thank you very much, Mose, for this question. You know that President von der Leyen has said from the beginning that we stand in full solidarity with the member states that are supporting, welcoming refugees that are fleeing the invasion in Ukraine. And we have taken many steps to show this solidarity. One of these steps was, for instance, the adoption of the CARE plan, CARE standing for Cohesion Action for Refugees in Europe. The idea of CARE was to, for instance, make the rules regarding cohesion policy much more flexible so that funds under cohesion policy can easily be used to support the reception and welcoming of refugees coming from Ukraine. Part of CARE is also the fact that the 2022 tranche of REACT-EU is immediately made available. And then thirdly, and this comes, I think, to your question regarding actual financing paid to the different member states, you know that we have increased our pre-financing rates, which allowed to pay 3.5 billion euros. In the context of Hungary, for instance, Hungary has received 2 weeks ago, you may remember that we presented this in this press room 2 weeks ago, Hungary has received 299.6 million euro. What we basically did is we increased the pre-financing rate from 11% to 45% for the frontline states such as Hungary, meaning more than 4 times the normal pre-financing. And by paying this higher pre-financing, we helped these member states that are bordering Ukraine to have immediately financial resources which allow them to receive and welcome refugees from Ukraine and who need this support most. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there other questions for us today? Fabio. We can't hear you. Can you start again? Yeah, now we can hear you, but start again, please.
Okay. Hi. Thank you for the floor. This is Fabio Napoli for Policy Europe News Agency. I have a question on energy. Last week, 5 energy ministers of the EU sent a letter to the Commission asking for an European Solar Act together with the Repower EU proposals, which is going to be approved next week. So I would like to know if the letter has been received and if the Commission is working at this Solar Act. Thank you.
Hi, Hi, Fabio. Yeah, I can confirm that we've seen this letter. In terms of solar energy and the Solar Act and the issues that are within it, I think it's very clear, and we've made this very clear from the start of the European Green Deal, that solar power is one of the essential elements of our green transition, and that we need to encourage this as much as possible. We have also said when we presented the initial Repower EU plan back in March, that fast-tracking, that accelerating the rollout of solar panels is something which can help us to ease and to end our dependence on Russian fossil fuels. So, as you know, the Repower EU plan is due to be presented in detail very soon. President von der Leyen already had the opportunity to say when she was in India at the International Solar Alliance meeting that a European solar strategy will come as part of that Repower EU plan. So obviously it's something that we're working on very intensively at the moment and which we will be able to share more details about very soon.
Thank you very much. We move on, I think, to other issues. Jessica.
Hiya. Thank you very much. Just a quick one on the Northern Ireland Protocol. Obviously there are suggestions that Liz Truss could move forward with legislation to start scrapping parts of the protocol from as soon as next week. I just wanted to know what your reaction was. And also there are claims coming out of the UK that Maroš Šefčovič said that the EU would never change its mandate on these negotiations. So I wanted to check if that was true, and if that is true, why won't he change it? Thank you.
Thank you. I'll give the floor to Dan. Absolutely. Although I think you have a very clear idea of what we're going to answer, Liz.
Actually, that's why I was hesitating coming up. Hi, Jess. I think, obviously, it'll come as no surprise to you that we do not comment on press reports at all. Of course, we can reply to things as they happen, but we're not going to now enter into commenting on something that may or may not happen in the future. I think all that I would do is underline what we've said before, time and time again, that the European Commission and the EU more broadly is fully committed to working jointly with the UK to find joint solutions that address the issues that have been raised by people and businesses in Northern Ireland, full stop. That's what we want to do, that's what we were committed to continuing to do, and that's our intention going forward.
Jessica, you have a follow-up.
Yeah, I just wanted to check on that point, though. Has Maroš Šefčovič said the EU will never change its mandate? Is that true? Is that the position? It's never going to happen.
Go ahead. Jez, I'm honestly not sure what mandate you're talking about. We have an agreement with the UK, which is called the Withdrawal Agreement, and that includes the protocol in Ireland and Northern Ireland. We also have the Trade and Cooperation Agreement. Both of those agreements are the foundation of our relationship with the United Kingdom. I think that the implementation of both of those agreements are therefore essential. That's something that we've underlined time and time again. Having said all of that, we are aware of the issues regarding the implementation of the protocol in Northern Ireland. We have bent over backwards to find flexible solutions since day one. You know that in October we came forward with an extremely comprehensive, wide-ranging set of solutions. We are willing to continue our discussions on that. We said at the time that it wasn't going to be a take it or leave it. So we're willing to continue working on that with the UK to find joint solutions so that we can address these issues once and for all. I think, finally, one thing that I would like to say is that the EU, as a peace project in and of itself, will always have an unshakable commitment to peace and prosperity in Northern Ireland.
Jessica, you have another follow-up. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, last one, I promise. Just to be clear, sorry if I wasn't clear, I believe it was in reference to the mandate for the negotiations to reform the protocol. Obviously, the UK kind of wants to move beyond the current text, so I think that was the mandate that Šefčovič was referring to.
No, but Jessica, I think that what Dan was saying is that we're not aware of such comments, but it's very clear that we have an agreement, and this agreement has been signed by both parties, ratified by both parties, is meant to be implemented by both parties, And the European Union and the Commission, as its executive, is bending over backwards in order to make sure that we can find practical solutions within the boundaries of these international treaties to solve legitimate issues. And I think that has to be very clear. We are not renegotiating an agreement. We are trying within the boundaries of an agreement to address specific issues, which, as always happens when you have international treaties, come up in the course of its implementation. And in that context, the Commission is showing utmost flexibility, and I would say also patience, in terms of asking the United Kingdoms to comply with its part of the deal. So this sets the frame for the discussions, and we should, I believe, see his comments in that context. Dan.
I think, Jess, just to underline again what I said, within that frame, we have found flexible solutions, and we put forward those solutions already. And in October, as I said, we didn't just throw those solutions on the table and say, take it or leave it. We said that we're willing to work with the UK to find joint solutions to address the issues that have been raised by people in Northern Ireland, no more and no less. So I think that's a really, really important thing. And we've proven that this can work. We've already found a solution for medicines, and this has been fully ratified in record time. So that's something that I think is important remembering.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dan. All right. I see no further questions for us today. David, je dois terminer à 13h, donc dernière question, je t'en prie.
Très vite, c'est par rapport à la proposition de hier de la présidente sur les panels citoyens pour les initiatives législatives importantes de la Commission. Je me demandais quelle est l'utilité, vu que vous avez déjà des consultations publiques en place depuis des années pour faire participer les citoyens.
Merci. Mais écoute, je crois qu'il faudra attendre les propositions spécifiques que la Commission sera amenée à faire pour pouvoir comparer les mérites de deux approches. Mais je pense que ce qui est incontestable, c'est que cela montre la volonté de la présidente de s'assurer qu'il y ait un engagement participatif de la part des citoyens et que cet engagement nourrisse la réflexion de la Commission quand elle fait ses propositions. Ce n'est pas la même chose qu'une consultation sur un site web où on fournit des réponses écrites. Mais encore une fois, il faudra attendre, je pense, les propositions exactes de la Commission pour pouvoir répondre à ta question qui est tout à fait légitime. Merci. Voilà, je vais clôturer ce rendez-vous de midi. Demain et jeudi, c'est Dana qui sera ici en salle de presse à ma place. Merci beaucoup.